Hello students, today we are going to start with a new prose, The Pleasure of Ignorance by Robert Lean. Let us know about the author first. Robert Lean was an eminent Irish essayist, literary critic and radical Irish nationalist. He was mainly remembered for a series of essays which he had written over a period of more than 40 years. During his lifetime, he had worked as a journalist, literary editor and contributed weekly literary essays to newspapers. He has also written drama criticism, introductions to literary work. He was a fluent English Irish speaker and he was strongly involved with Irish political parties such as Sinn Féin and Gaelic League. His writing was noted for its wit and ironic humor and his characteristic easy, conversational and reflective style. Written in elegant and fluid style, many of his essays are considered 20th century essays. Means from his writings we come to know they were very ironical, they were very close to the human nature. They, whatever his writings were, when the person who goes through his writings, they will come to know it was related to their life and it was very reflective. Means it really had some connection with a person. As the person goes on reading, he really felt that the things which are mentioned in his writing really had connection with their actual life. So let us know about this extract mainly. The Pleasures of Ignorance is one of the essays Lynn contributed to the New Statesman. Later it appeared as the lead essay in his collection, The Pleasures of Ignorance in 1921. Herein is this extract, he wants to tell us that ignorance is not altogether bad. It is a source of pleasure because it allows us to ask questions and to discover new things, thus making our life richer by the search for knowledge. Now, usually children, ignorance is a term which we feel that it is really shameful. If anyone quotes us with this term, ignorance, we feel very shameful. We feel that we lack knowledge, we lack mental ability or capability to be around the people. We don't have that much confidence to speak with people. But here Lynn wants to tell us that ignorance is not altogether bad. It is actually a source of pleasure. Why he is saying it is a source of pleasure? Because if the person is ignorant, if the person is lacking knowledge about any particular concept here, what will that person do? What we do if we lack knowledge about any particular subject? What we become curious to know about it, and for that, because of that curiosity, what we do, we tend to ask question that how it is possible, why it is like that, how come it can be like that, and all those questions come to our mind and we try to look out for the answers for those questions. Means what we are doing, we are looking out for the answers for those questions. Means we are enhancing our knowledge. Our knowledge is becoming more richer here. So that's why he is saying it is a pleasure here, thus making our life richer by the search for knowledge. And to explain this thesis, he has explained this thesis with example from nature. In this extract we come to know, to explain this thesis, he has given us examples from nature. Like Lind offers examples from nature to demonstrate his thesis that the great pleasure of ignorance is, after all, the pleasure of asking question. He's saying, now you must have heard one more quote, like ignorance is bliss. Means it is a blessing. Why it is a blessing? It has been said that when the person is ignorant, we tend to gain more knowledge about that particular concept or subject, and that enhances our knowledge. On the other hand, if we feel that I know everything, so what we do, we stop enhancing our knowledge. Our knowledge enhancement of our knowledge stops there only. So for that reason he is saying pleasure of ignorance is, after all, pleasure of asking question. It is pleasure of enhancing our knowledge. That he has explained to us with the examples of nature. Now let's start. See. It is impossible to take a walk in the country with an average townsman, especially perhaps in April or May, without being amazed at the vast continent of his ignorance. Means suppose if we are just having a walk in the country here, and if one person is there along with us who we feel that he can just give us information about that particular place, and if we come to know that person is totally ignorant, he doesn't have knowledge about that place, so it is really foolish thing to go along with that person. Usually when we go to a new place, what we feel that we should have a guide with us, or we should have such a person with us who has complete knowledge about that place, who can tell us about the historical importance of that place, or you can say favorable places which we you can go and visit, or you can say the favorable time to visit that place, and all those things that person can tell us only when he has the knowledge. But if we are going along with an ignorant person, so that is foolish thing. It is impossible to take a walk in the country oneself without being amazed at the vast continent of one's own ignorance. Means if we alone also, if we are going there and we don't have knowledge about that place, then we cannot enjoy that place. We cannot feel that place because we don't know anything about that place. We are totally stranger there. We don't know what to enjoy there. So here he wants to tell that thousands of men and women live and die without knowing the difference between a beech and an elm. Now beech is a tree which has pointed leaves, and elm is a tree which has stipulate leaves with small flowers on it. Now a common man or woman, we all human beings, we are so ignorant here. We also don't know, children, what is the difference between beech and elm. That only the writer wants to tell us, that we live our life throughout, we feel we are highly educated, we are very cultured and all, but we are so ignorant, we don't know the difference between a beech and an elm. Until and unless we try to look out for that knowledge, we try to search the information about what is beech and what is elm. Between the song of a thrush and the song of a blackbird. Now we don't know the difference between how thrush, a bird, sing and how a blackbird sing. What is the difference? That also we don't know. We never pay attention so minutely towards nature. Probably in a modern city, the man who can distinguish between the thrush and a blackbird song is the exception. Means in the modern society, in a cultured society, highly educated society, hardly we can find anyone who can tell us the difference between the song of a thrush and a song of a blackbird here. And even if we find such a person in our society, that will be very exceptional thing for us. It is not that we have not seen the birds. It is simply that we have not noticed them. Why are we so ignorant? Because we don't tend to see things so minutely. We don't observe nature so minutely. It is not that we have not seen birds, we have not heard birds singing and all. It is only that we don't pay attention, minute attention towards them. We have been surrounded by birds all our lives, yet so feeble is our observation that many of us could not tell whether or not the chaffinch sings or the color of the cuckoo. Means throughout our life we have seen birds. Birds we all see around us. But our observation is so feeble. Feeble means it is so weak that we cannot tell whether the bird which is singing, it is a chaffinch. Chaffinch is a small bird of a finch family. Or we cannot only also tell if we ask to a common man what is the color of the cuckoo, that person also might not know it. So weak is our observation towards nature. We argue like small boys as to whether the cuckoo always sings as he flies or sometimes in the branches of a tree, whether George Chapman drew on his fancy or his knowledge of nature in the lines. Means we argue over things like small children, that whether the cuckoo always sings when it flies, or it sings only when it is in the branch of a tree. And we also say argue over that the writer, famous writer George Chapman, whether he has knowledge about the cuckoo, that's why he has written this line, or he has just thought in his thinking process only, he has just thought of himself and he has written these lines, that when in the oak's green arm the cuckoo sing, and the first delights men in the lovely spring. Means after reading this line, we just argue, a common people will just argue whether whatever he is saying is correct, whether they sing only when they are in the branch there, or whether they sing when they fly. We don't know whether this person has really knowledge about it, or he has just fancifully written these lines. This ignorance, however, is not altogether miserable. He's saying it is not altogether bad. We cannot say it is shameful. In our society, ignorance is considered as shameful. But here writer is saying ignorance is not altogether bad. Out of it, we get the constant pleasure of discovery. Why it is not bad? He's saying because of this ignorance, what we try to do, we try to search for knowledge, we try to enhance our knowledge, we try to discover new things here. Every fact of nature comes to us each spring, if only we are sufficiently ignorant with the dew still on it. If we have lived half a lifetime without having ever even seen a cuckoo and know it only as a wandering voice, we all the more delighted as the spectacle of its runaway flight, as it hurries from the wood to wood, conscious of its crimes, and at the way in which it hauls hawk-like in the wind, its long tail quivering before it dares to descend on a hillside of the fir trees where avenging presences may lurk. Means, see here you will find that when you start with, when you try to know about that cuckoo, that when it sings and how it moves along the from trees to trees, how it run away or flies away from one wood to another wood, then only we'll come to know about cuckoo more minutely, that it has a long tail quivering, moving, or how it dares to descend on a hillside of fir trees where avenging presences may lurk. Means they means there might be some you can say animal there who try to you can say hunt them, eat them up and all. So all this thing, when we minutely see the pay attention to something of nature, then only we can learn about it. Here mainly he wants you to tell us that though we read many books, though we feel that we are very educated and all, until and unless we observe the things very minutely, until and unless we have experience of it, we cannot say that we have knowledge about it. It would be absurd to pretend that the naturalist does not also find pleasure in observing the life of the bird, but his is a steady pleasure, almost a sober and plodding occupation, compared to the morning enthusiasm of the man who sees a cuckoo for the first time and behold the world is made new. Means he's saying a naturalist, what they have a tendency, they look at the things in the nature, the birds, the trees very minutely, they have a detailed study over them. They know that when, in which season they come, at what time they sing, where they sing, what they eat, where they live, every minute detail about the birds and the trees and all, they know everything. But he is saying, if we feel that we are also like those people, it is not like that. He wants to tell us that if we compare to them, that like a common man, what we do, if we just morning, in early morning, if we stand there in our balcony and we see cuckoo for the first time, and we feel that I have a great knowledge about that bird, is not a fact here. To have a detailed information, to look at the thing minutely, experience it, observe it, then only we can say we have a detail or we know that thing very nicely. So it wants to tell us that we should be very curious to ask question, to discover new thing, to find out or information about those things. And as to that, happiness even of the naturalist depends in some measure upon his ignorance, which still leaves him new worlds of this kind of to conquer. He may have reached the very Z of the knowledge in the books, but he still feels half ignorant until he has confirmed each bright particular with his eyes. Now here what he wants to say, that this naturalist, the person who seeks naturalist is a person who has knowledge about the things in the nature, trees, birds and all. Even if we feel that he is a naturalist, he has a great knowledge about the nature, he has reached the Z of the knowledge, he has known everything from A to Z, but We here the writer wants to say that he himself is also an ignorant person until and unless he confirms himself with his eye. He particularly observes the things of the nature with his eye. He particularly experiences with experiences those things of the nature with his eyes. Then only he can say that he has a great knowledge here. He wishes with his own eyes to see the female cuckoo rare spectacle as she lays her egg on the ground and takes it in her bill to the nest in which it is destined to breed infanticide. Now, here he minutely observe, and here he can say he is a true naturalist when he only sees, he experiences how a cuckoo lays her egg, then takes it to her bill, and then there it puts that egg, and then you can say a new bird is born there, grown up there, fly again. All this thing very minutely, until and unless you experience, you cannot say that just by reading a book you can say you are a knowledgeable person. He would sit day after day with field glass against his eyes in order to personally to endorse or refute the evidence suggesting that the cuckoo does lay on the ground and not in the nest. Means we common people, what we have knowledge, according to our knowledge a bird lays egg in the nest, but this is only a naturalist when he observes the thing minutely through his field glasses day after day, when he every day have a watch on the cuckoo, then only he will come to know that actually the cuckoo does not lay egg in the nest, but it lays egg in the on the ground here. And if he is so far fortunate as to discover this most secretive of birds in the very act of laying, there still remain for him other fields to conquer in the multitude of such disputed questions as whether the cuckoo's egg is always of the same color as the other egg in the nest in which she abandons it. Means here he's saying even if he gets the knowledge that the cuckoo lays egg in the on the ground and not in the nest, still there is some more thing for him to know, is that whether the color of that egg is similar to the other eggs in the nest or it is of different. Means he wants to tell every time, even though we feel we have a degree and we have lot of knowledge, it is not that our knowledge is ever complete. Our knowledge is incomplete only. There is so much thing in the world, in the nature to learn. Every time when you feel that you have completed your knowledge, you have completed your education, there is still new things for you to learn here. Assuredly, the men of science have no reason as yet to weep over their lost ignorance. If they seem to know everything, it is only because you know and I know almost nothing. Means if we feel those people are more knowledgeable than us. Why? Because we are totally ignorant. We don't know anything. What is the color of the cuckoo? Where do they lay their eggs? And what is the color of their egg and all? We don't know anything. We just know cuckoo is a bird. If anyone asks us about a question about cuckoo, what will we say? We'll say it is a bird. And that's why we say that these people are knowledgeable people. Why? Because we feel they have knowledge that where they lay eggs and till what time they lay egg, and where they put the egg and what is the color of the egg, because they have observed it minutely here, you can say. But they are also not actually knowledgeable person, because still there is more left for them to know about the cuckoo. There will always be fortune of ignorance waiting for them under every fact they turn up. Every time you feel that you have know everything, it is not the fact. There is something new for you to learn, something left for you to learn. They will never know what the song the sirens sang to Ulysses any more than Sir Thomas Browne did. Here also he has given one example here. After that, if I have called in the cuckoo to illustrate the ordinary man's ignorance, it is not because I can speak with authority on that bird. Means here is writer is saying that if I am giving you example of cuckoo in this essay, it doesn't mean that I have complete knowledge about that bird. It is simply because passing the spring in a parish that seemed to have been invaded by all the cuckoos of Africa, I realize how exceedingly little I or anybody else I met knew about them. Means he is saying it was only that I have given you example of this cuckoo. Writer has given you this example of cuckoo. It was because that in Paris in spring season he had seen lot of cuckoos of Africa, and that time he realized he really know very little about cuckoo than like other people. They also didn't have more knowledge about cuckoo. But your and my ignorance is not confined to cuckoos. It dabbles in all created things. Means he's saying our ignorance means common people. It is not that we don't know anything about cuckoo. That is only not the fact here. It dabbles in all created things. Dabble means what? To learn a little of something, means in all the things which are there in nature. In all those things, every time you will find something new to learn. From the sun and the moon down to the names of the flowers, everything in the nature, you will find that something there is there that which you don't know. It is only when you will realize, when you try to seek more knowledge, when you try to find out. I once heard a clever lady asking whether the new moon always appears on the same day of the week. She added that perhaps it is better not to know, because if one does not know or in what part of the sky to accept its appearance is always a pleasant surprise. See, very nice example here the writer has given. He's given one example of a lady. He's saying a lady is very ignorant, or the lady doesn't know when the new moon appears in the sky here. When the new moon appears in the sky. So she's saying it is good that I don't know. There is pleasure in my not knowing when the new moon appears in the sky. Because if she knows that on which day the new moon will be seen in the sky, she won't have interest in looking at the sky every day. But if she is ignorant here, what will happen? Every day she will go and look up in the sky for the new moon. And suddenly one day when she sees the new moon in the sky, it will be a pleasure for her. She will feel very happy. It will be a pleasant surprise for her. So that's why the writer wants to say that there is a pleasure in seeking knowledge. There is a pleasure in asking questions. There is pleasure in ignorance. I fancy, however, the new moon always comes as a surprise event to those who are familiar with her timetables. Means here the writer is saying that the writer really wishes that new moon always comes as a surprise to even those who know when the new moon appears in the sky. Usually if we know when the new moon appears in the sky, we won't look at the sky every day. But a ignorant person who doesn't know when the new moon appears in the sky, they will look at the sky every day. And one fine night when they see the new moon in the sky, that will be a pleasure for him. Pleasure for her, sorry. And it is the same thing with the coming in of spring and the waves of the flowers. We are not the less delighted to find an early primrose because we are sufficiently learned in the services of the year to look for it in the March or April rather than in October. Means he is saying that is in the case for us also, that we also feel delighted to see the primrose. We as we are ignorant about nature, we don't know that we can find primrose in October month here. But what happened when we are looking out for that in March or April? What will happen? We find pleasure that suddenly when we see it in October, we will find pleasure because we don't know the actual month when we can see those primroses in the garden here. So that can become a pleasure for us or a pleasant surprise for us. We know again that the blossom precedes and not succeeds the fruit of apple tree. But this does not lessen our amazement at the beautiful holiday of a May orchard. Means though we know though we are ignorant that blossom precedes or not succeeds the fruit of the apple tree, but what happened, we really find you can say pleasure in the holiday of May orchard here. We really feel happy here. So here from all those examples children, from all these examples, writer only wants to tell us that in ignorance is a bliss here. In ignorance people find blessing. They feel very happy when they suddenly get to know about new things of the nature. At the same time, there is perhaps a special pleasure in relearning the names of many of the flowers every spring. It is like rereading a book that one has almost forgotten. Means here again he has compared nature with a common man's example. Now suppose if we have read one book and we have forgotten the story of the book, and again when we start at one fine day we find it in our library and we reread the book, we really find it interesting, and we those things get recollected into our mind. We start reimagining those things earlier which we have gone through when we read those book first time. Same thing is in the case of learning the names of the flowers. Every spring season we learn the names of the flowers, then we forget, then again in the next spring season again we don't know if we forget the name, and then again we find pleasure in knowing about those flowers name and their information about that flowers and all. So it is really pleasure in knowing the things, it really pleasure in gaining more and more knowledge here. I'll stop here. In my next lecture I'll continue with the same course. Thank you.